So, hello everyone. Welcome to the 78th week of React Knowledgeable. For those of you who are new, we are a podium to share things we find interesting as a React developer. So, not always React, but since we are a React team, this will be from time to time we will talk about React, like this week. So, you're not seeing Ken for today, but he's actually here handling all the fancy technology stuff. And then you are seeing the slides and the link here. You can find links to all the links in our detailed issue in our repo. So moving on, shouting outs to Shopee, which is the company home to most of our arcade speakers and participants thus far. We're actually trying our best to make our content public, and we welcome you, even if you're not from Shopee, to join us and share things you find interesting from your daily development. And also shouting outs to Engineer SG for providing tremendous support and guidance for video recording and live streaming and and everything. I'm seeing people are chatting here in our live chat already. So if you just joined, please say hello to everybody now. This is a good time for you to to greet each other. We'll have 2 more minutes for all these nonsense. Right. We do have a COC, so be nice to each other. Do not record our live streaming. Do not post advertisements and say nice things. Do not say mean things here. And then there is a link to the full version of our COC. At RK, we foster a learning spirit. So we're at a constant lookout for sharing topics. You don't have to be the most eloquent speaker. If you find something interesting, particularly inspiring, or some ridiculous bug that you encountered that make you feel you learn a lot, please focus. And do know that we love to help you with your sharing, with your talks. Either we can do a discussion or a dry run because we really, really want your sharing at RK to be successful. So Singapore CSS happened 2 days ago, and it will happen again in June 3rd. It will be the first Wednesday of June. It will be the 51st one in the series. It looks like a prime number, but it's actually divisible by 3. So we're also looking for speakers for Singapore CSS. So if you have anything related with CSS, please poke Huijing. Poke me also can, but Huijing is the organizer. I'm the contingency. Anyway, so today's topic, we're talking about parenting today. We have 2 topics. The first one is by Louis. For those of you who are in the Shopee team, we know the team splitting thing, and actually I'm very excited about this. This is actually we do have prior speakers from our team previously, but both me and Jenny spoke before we have this new team. So Louis is actually the first speaker from our new team to be speaking at RK. So I'm really very excited about this. And then after that, we'll talk about something relevant with Nebula. What is Nebula? I'll let you know later. So for now, why don't we switch over to Louis? Okay, let me stop sharing.
Okay. Shall I start? Yeah, I'll start sharing my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, can see.
Okay, so today the title of my topic is to control or not to control. That's the question. And hi everyone, my name is Lu Yu. I'm from the Shopee ISFE team, which stands for Internal System Frontend team. So today, if you can tell from the title, it's most probably about like React forms. So everyone knows that React has there are two ways to build forms in React. One is control form, and another way is uncontrolled form. So why not we look at example of the control form. So this is directly taken from the React's official documentation. It's still using the old class component syntax. So I guess I'll show a hook example instead. So if you can see in the code example, to build a controlled form is fairly simple. All you need is a use state hook. So basically, you are hooking up a change handler, on change handler for your input component, and also you are controlling the display value of this input component using the state. And basically, whenever there's any change happen to this input, it's going to set state. React is going to set the state, and it's going to trigger re-render of this entire component to reflect the latest change. And there's no surprise that when you submit the form, you are going to get the value you input into this component. So this is fairly easy and simple to implement and understand. And in HTML, form elements such as input, text area, and select, they typically maintain their own states and update it based on the user's input. But in React, mutable state is typically kept in the state property of a component and only updated with set state. So with controlled form, we're actually using letting React handle the states. So it's like React is telling the DOM, hey, let me take care of the states. Please just take a rest. So whenever there's an unchanged event happens to this input component, input element, we're calling the set state. And the set state, the state change will trigger a re-render of the component. So this is how it works. And on the other hand, we have uncontrolled forms. And this is actually one of the approach listed on the React's official documentation. And in order to write an uncontrolled form, the way that the React official documentation suggested is to use ref. So basically, you are attaching a ref to your input component like this. And when you actually submit your form, you take the value of your input component like this. So this is the example of that. Basically, why is this? Basically, when you click, oh my God, why? What's happening? Oh yeah, it's back. So basically, when you click submit, it's going to retrieve the value from the input element via ref. And there are actually, for uncontrolled forms, to write an uncontrolled component, instead of writing an event handler for every state update, you can use a ref to get form value from the DOM. And so basically, React is basically telling DOM that please manage your own state. I'll grab the state from you when I need them. So when you actually click the submit button, React will take the value from the ref. And there are more than one way to do control forms with refs. So one example was that you attach a ref to your input element. And another way is that you still have a unchanged handler for your component, but instead of updating a state, you update the ref. And we all know that ref change doesn't trigger re-render. So this actually won't cause a re-render of this component. So this is like closer, it looks closer to the state approach. And there's another way which you can use to reduce the boilerplate to even less by not using refs at all. So basically, you are not attaching any ref to any element. you are basically using the submit event for the form element. So basically in the handle submit, this handler, you can access your inputs value by using their name, which you have declared on each of their declare here and here. So an example would be why is this blocking? Sorry. Yep, this is the example. So basically, just to show you that it works, I'll click submit, and you can see that we can get the value. And if we take a look at the event, and in the target, we have the form itself, and we can access like the first input by calling dot input one. We can access this one by calling dot input two, and we can get their value very easily using this syntax. So how about validation? Because with the control form, validation is pretty straightforward. Because you have access to the state directly, you can validate however you want. But for uncontrolled form, it's in a ref. So during submission, because you can retrieve your value, so you can actually do any validation you want, and combined with HTML, your browser's built-in validation functionality, it can be simple as well. So, for example, you can use the set custom validity method, and it's going to have this browser built-in UI for validation when an error actually happens. And this might look different on different browsers, but yeah, this is how it looks on Chrome. All right, so let's do a quick summary about control forms. Control forms, they are easy and intuitive to implement in React. It gives you control of the form's value, which means you can dynamically update them, you can validate, transform, or format the values very easily. But the downsides are pretty obvious as well. You have to write a lot of boilerplates. Like you need to initialize the value, the state. You need to write event handlers, and but this can be reduced with abstractions like using a form library or building your own form builder. And another downside is that re-renders control forms re-render every time when there's a state change. By using React memo could mitigate the issue, but it's also like it's another thing to worry about. So to demo this issue, I have created a control form with a lot of inputs. This is actually quite common, like in large admin portal projects, which we actually work on a lot. So notice that I'm not applying any CPU throttle here. If I type something, if I type in something quickly, you can notice the lag, pretty obvious. So if I apply a CPU throttle, it's going to be more obvious. Yeah, the lag is very noticeable. And another downside is that it becomes complicated if you want to convert a HTML form to a control form. Let's say if you want to migrate a very old legacy project into a React, this is going to be very troublesome. So React actually links to the official documentation actually links to an article that compares the two approaches. And in the article, there's a table listing the features provided by the two approaches. You can see that control forms tick every box, but uncontrolled forms, they are good for one-time value retrieval, validation submit, but they fail at instant field validation, conditionally disabling submit button, enforcing blah, 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 all this. So can we do better? And so on 10th of March, I saw on Twitter, there's an article written by Sean on uncontrolled forms. And he proposed a new way to write uncontrolled forms. So it's basically like uncontrolled forms on steroid. The trick is to use the name property on your input component, and also attach a change event handler for your form component. And by doing this, you can do instant validation very easily, because you have whenever there's a value change on any of these form elements, you can handle them. And this approach actually ticks every boxes. It's quite amazing. I can actually show you a demo of that. This is actually in his article, one of the demo. And you can see that there's no React use state hook in this demo. And if we try to put in something, and for age, the validation rule is that it must be above 13. So 13, it fails. 14, it passed. Nice. And it has validation on submit as well. So how does it actually do that? For validation at submit is pretty obvious. You can do that for the submit in the submit handler. But for instant validation and all the style changes regarding whether it passed or failed the validation is actually in the handle change method handler. So basically, every time there's a new change, it's going to validate all fields. This is a function written here. So it's going to validate all fields and set the validity using the rule defined here. And for the styles, it's actually in CSS itself. You can use the CSS pseudo selector invalid and valid to set the styling for both valid and invalid input. And because do you remember that in the previous demo there's a Chrome built-in validation error UI? Basically, you are customizing that here. So by leveraging the power of CSS pseudo selectors, you can achieve custom styling for your valid and invalid inputs. If you need more complex error UI or trigger some UI change outside this form, you can always adopt React use state. So the only difference is that you are not using state to manage your form values. You are only using the states for your error, and it's not going to re-render every time there's a change in your form. And if you need a form library to do that, there's one library called React Hook Form. It provides both uncontrolled and controlled approach, and it's a pretty lightweight package. And I've been using it for a few months and have been quite happy with it. So let's do a summary here. Control forms. For control forms, form values they are managed by state in React runtime, and the form value and the React state is always in sync because the UI is driven by state in React. And for uncontrolled forms, it's much more closer to vanilla JavaScript. And it also provides the benefit that if you have a legacy project you want to convert to React, it's very easy to do that with uncontrolled forms. And the form values are only retrieved by React when needed. So to answer the question, to control or not to control, it really depends. Yeah. So if you need if you need to know about your state every time, like at all times, the more obvious choice is control form. But if you are more aware, you need to take care of performance, then uncontrolled form is a pretty good way to go. All right. That's it for my sharing.
Hello. Got questions? Okay, so for other people in the YouTube live chats, You can start asking questions also. We do have a few questions from the live chat. One is there anything uncontrolled input cannot do?
Is there any? Technically, no, because with the power of JavaScript, you can access the DOM directly. So technically, there you can do anything with that, right? But if you are saying if you are limited only to React and you are not allowed to access the DOM directly, then you can, I guess you can only do, let me find the table. Where is it? Yeah, if you are only limited by React, you cannot do like all this, right? But because you have access to the DOM itself, you can do everything. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I think we got one more question. What's your opinion on using debounce for controlled forms? Oh, I think there was a prior discussion on the performance thing. So initially, I think Chen Chen was asking, uh, what is your explanation for performance being laggy when there are a lot of inputs? And I think you did mention that it can be optimized with React Memo. And then,
Yes, a React memo can optimize for this type of situation. My point is that you need to basically think about this, right? Because like React memo is not free. You need
Mhm,
to write it yourself. You need to think about it.
right,
So yeah, that's an extra thing to worry about for developers.
right. Okay, then following that, what about using debounce?
Debounce, I've actually never tried the debounce way, but from what I understand, it can mitigate the lag issue. Yeah, I think it can solve the problem as well. It's just that if you are using control form, right, and if you need instant feedback for your state change, then that might be a problem. Other
Mm.
than that, that should be a pretty decent way to mitigate the problem.
Actually, I think I recall that Dan Nevermov talked about this in the JSConf Iceland talk 2 years ago. Actually, I think he has a demo with debounce also.
Oh, is it?
It's a talk a few years back also. So, but
I
the demo he built was quite interesting. So he built something that looks like a clock, and then if the lag issue is significant, then the clock will look like there's a lag that has a uh, cone shape that will show up red. So that was quite interesting. Anyway, we do have more questions. How do you handle dynamic form that show and hide next input based on the previous input?
dynamic show and hide next input with. Oh, oh, in that case, if if that's the requirement, I guess you can still achieve that with uncontrolled form. It's just that you are stepping into manipulating the DOM directly that area, which is not desirable for when you are actually developing in React. So in that case, I guess control forms are a better solution. But yeah, I'm open to ideas on this question. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. So,
Mm-hmm.
out of the forms that you're building for our team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using which one are you using more often?
Uh, if I have a large form, if I have a very small form, it's like if it only has like one or two inputs, usually I'll just use a, a control form. I might not need, use the form element itself. It's just like one input or two input boxes, and
Mm,
because that's pretty easy to write. But if I have a huge form which I need to consider the performance issue, I usually go with the uncontrolled form route. But I do use a library to do that, to make my life easier. Yeah.
Which library is that? Did you share?
Yeah, it's the library here. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, it's this library called React Hook Form.
Oh, okay, I see. Cool. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions. Okay, I think the chat diverts into a discussion, which is also quite interesting. Then after your sharing, you can read the chat and you can see if you want to react to any of those. So
yeah, okay.
having said that, thank you for your sharing. It's amazing. This is the second time I'm hearing this, and I'm still really enjoying this.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So why don't we pass this to our next talk? So next we'll have James. James is also from Shopee. He is working in the web front-end team. So hello, James. Are you here?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Will you be? Okay. Yes, I can see you now. So cool. Why don't you start sharing your screen?
Is that I see? I already see my. Oh yeah, let me show this.
So as a brief introduction, James is from Taiwan and he has been working on this project called Nebula. For those of you who are not from Shopee, maybe later on, before we start, you can do a brief intro to what Nebula is. For me, there's a personal connection between this with this previous version. So I'm actually pretty excited about this talk, and I love their logo. I'm not sure whether he will tell you the story about this logo. So with all due respect, I'll pass it on to James. Okay, James is all yours
Thank
now.
you.
Go ahead. Good luck.
Okay, thank you, Galway. So hello everyone. This is RK72. I'm James Du from Platform team. I'm working on the Nebula libraries. So that you know that something that's Nebula is because the previous version is about the Stardust, and we want something the Nebula is also a Astoria name, so we named this, and wish it can be something better. It's a wish. Okay, so today's topic is fun facts of Nebula, and you know the series Big Bang Theory. You know there's a character Sheldon, and he has a series called Fun of Facts. So this name basically is from that verse. Okay, so today's topic is to talk about how to interact with the children of your component. And I will tell you the background about how we face this problem and our attempts. And finally, we found the pattern of it. So you can see this is a component with a link. Tip component is to provide information to the users. Sometimes it got a link inside of its content. So in order to put the content, so we put the content as the children of tip so that you can customize which part is the link in the text content. But you don't need to focus on how to style the link. So there's a tip link text we provide for you, so you don't have to focus on it. So for now, things looking good, but until you make some requests, is you need to add an action icon for tip, and the touch shown is different depends on wherever you got the link text. Take a look at the first one and the third one. You see the first one, it got a split touch area, but the third one doesn't have. The only difference between this one and the third one is that the first one has a link text in it. So it got the touch area for the link text to go to somewhere, and another touch area for the to close something. On the other hand, if you don't have the link text, so you just have a closed touch area. So that leads to a result that you can see this is a tip component, but whether there's a split touch area is determined by whether there is a link text inside of it. So in other words, we need to figure out one way that tip knows there is a tip link text inside its children so that it can know whether there's a split touch area. And that's how we came up with our main topic. Okay, let me go forward. There are some solutions. Simple solutions. There are 3 solutions, and I'll go through one by one, so you can just go with me. The first naive idea is that you just treat the children that, oh, if the children type is not of string, then you say, this is not considered as containing any tip link text. Well, of course, this is true, but you can see that even though you have something like this, my price, and it just wrapped a string with this price and unit, and this will become an object type. And not only this, is even that you can include some span inside of your text, it will also become a type of object. So this naive idea is not okay, not ideal. Second, we can set it manually. So by our developer, they can just set its link manually, so that tip will know that there is a link text inside of it. So it can determine right that there is a split touch area or no. But actually, it's works. But literally, the code itself is duplicate, because from the downside you can see there's information about from the code structure. You can see that actually tip link text is already inside of the tip, but still we need to use this is link props to tell it. So from the code itself, it's not quite ideally. Although technically we can know that how it works for this, but the code itself is not how to say it? Condensed, not that condensed enough. So it works, but it's not ideal. So we come to the third option. Third option is basically just recursively check all child nodes type. You can this is some kind of pseudocode, but the main point is that you have a traverse children function. You pass in the children, and you just recursively count the child type, whether it is a type link text or it's a type, the child of the type is string. And if you don't, if it's neither a tip link text or it's not a string, then you consider no, it is not a valid. But this will lead to a problem that actually even this example, your friend Spenta Joy is a talking. This is also fail on this, because when you come to this part is actually not a tip link text and not a string. So it's kind of too strict. And even though there's a more problem that because on each render, you can see that this traverse will be called in a render. So on each render, the tip itself wouldn't know that what's inside your children. So this recurse needs to run on each render. That's also not that ideal. So what's exactly the real solution? Who knows the tip link text is mounted? Who exactly knows it? Actually is the tip link text itself. So imagine that a very naive way is that the tip link text component itself can tell us something like this, that he got a function that mount link text and unmount link text. And when it's mounted, he will do something like this to trigger, to notify it's being mount. And when he's gone, we'll trigger this unmount link text to notify it's unmount. With that, we can know that how many tip link text inside your children. But how does it come from? Who will give this mount link text and unmount link text, this notification? So here comes our solution, the context pattern. You can see that simply we can create a small tip context, and this tip context, you can use this context, and you can get this mount link text and unmount link text, and you can do this thing. And to wrap up, basically it will be very easy. You just, the upper part, you can screen that as just same part, and the tip, you just do something like the counting. The amount link text is just to count the link text count, and amount link text is just to -1. So with this provider inside your tip component, you can count all the tip link text count inside your Snap tip component. Here I need to thanks that actually this idea comes from Yijing. We work with her, and he mentioned of this idea. And at the first point, we just think that, oh, this is overkill to use context on this scenario. But after a little thought, we just came out that, wow, it really works. Why? Because when you are doing this, you can see you won't expect that the children of the tip, because we are using this for a text, right? So there may be maybe spans or something, or someone just want to wrap it as a component. There are many cases, but you don't expect that there will be a very deeper tree, no tree, right? So since there won't be a very deeper tree, so the context will not affect so many parts. So you can expect that they won't cost too much. And also the context will not call on each render. So it prevents the issue that we met in the recursive. So that's all about this. And I believe this can be discussed. If anyone have any better ideas, we can also talk this. So let me put back to the whole idea part, and start it. You can ask questions.
This is really cool. Right, I feel the context part we pass a little bit fast. So please give me some time to read the code. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So just to think out loud here. So the tip link text. Okay. So tip will put the set count functions inside tip
Yes.
context provider. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the amount link text will be a setter function, and mount link text will be another setter function, each handling mounting and unmounting, and we're putting that into a provider. And then for each tip link text, which knows that itself is a link, we'll grab those from the context, and by calling use context. And then therefore we have these functions here, and then okay, we're calling use effect here. So this will be called every time it's mounting, and then because it's returning amount, so the amount link text will be called when the component amounts.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but not yeah, HI mounting. Yeah. Right. Sorry.
Cool. This is cool. Wow, I did not think of this. Although it feels the right solutions. It's like the kind of solution where after realizing this, I feel it's exactly right and cannot think of a better one. And I'm also curious whether someone get a better idea that solves this. Right. I'm still waiting for questions. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, mention again. This idea actually comes from Ichi, not origin from me.
I'm curious.
Actually,
How long did you guys spent
came out
to
with this.
solve this mystery?
You mean, sorry, I didn't get.
Like from you realize this problem, how long time take you to first define the problem that
Actually, not that long.
Okay.
Actually, because we need to do, because it's a real problem. We need to determine whether there's a split touch area. Remember it, right? So
Right.
we need to find a way to tackle on it.
Right.
Yeah. So we just raise this problem and find try to attempt some this, maybe just an afternoon or one day. I forget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it didn't very quickly raise this idea. It's amazing.
Mm. Okay, I'm seeing alternate solutions from the channel. So Chen Chen said he's thinking whether there's any trick to use CSS sibling selectors to achieve the same effect. I know that Hui Jing is here. I guess she will start playing around, but if she gets back to me, I will let you know. Right. So before we wrap up, can you also tell us about the CSS, the logo of Nebula? Do you have that? I think you're stuck. Wait.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can now. Can you show us the logo of Nebula?
Oh, you mean the Nebula logo?
Yes.
Oh, wait a second. Is this work? Oh, but this one is very small.
Oh, is it the O of the off?
Yeah, I just put it right here.
Wow, what was the trick for this?
Actually, you can see that there's an image inside, but the rectangular image, right? Because the nebula means the something like this in the universe. So in the first beginning, I want to really draw something like this ethereal.
Right.
But unfortunately, that the key point is that this things is kind of look like a cloud, the cloud sky. So I just happened to read an article about this trick, that how to implement a cloud with a CS filter. So the basic idea is that there's a filter that can be applied on the box shadow. With that, you can implement some kind of the effect of the cloud. And after that, you can do some cloud things, and then you can mix the clouds with some colors, and then you can do something like this.
Wow. This looks really cool.
Yeah.
Right, I already knew this beforehand. So I already stole the code. But yeah, here I just want to highlight that this is really, really cool. If you're in Shopee, you should go stalk his code and see how this works. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right, okay. I think I'm seeing no more questions from the channel. So thanks again for doing this sharing. It is really, really cool. And also thanks for working on Nebula. I think that is that is a very powerful project after Stardust. And I'm really grateful that we follow the Stardust theme and creating this new logo on top of the existing logo as well. So thank you guys for joining this. We're knowledgeable also. It is 6:45 now. You can order your dinner if you're still stuck at home. And we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.